Hey guys, it's Dawn and welcome to another writing craft discussion. Today I want to use Jade City by Fonda Lee as a reference to talk about morally gray characters. Today's video is going to be a little more structured than my previous writing craft discussion, which was on Gardens of the Moon by Steven Erikson, because I want to talk about 3 ways that I came up with that writers can get their readers to connect with morally gray characters. Since I will be using Jade City to talk about each of these 3 methods, I will give you a spoiler warning for this video. I'm not going to go super in depth into the plot of Jade City or tell you what happens at the end, but there will be some spoilers for the character arcs for the 4 main characters in Jade City. So if you haven't read the book, I don't think this is a good video for you. I also don't think it would make a ton of sense or be that useful if you haven't read the book yet, but do so at your own risk if you choose to. So I want to start with character motivation as my first topic of discussion, because I think it's something that Fonda Lee does with such amazing skill in Jade City. I was blown away by her character work in this book. The way that she was able to have each of our 4 siblings be so distinct, not only in their personalities, but in their character motivations, specifically why or why not were they loyal towards the clan? What were their feelings about the clan? What were their desires for themselves just as an individual? And each was so distinct from the next that it was a really effective way to pull the reader in. Think about just the contrast between, for example, Lan and Hilo. Disclaimer, I'm probably going to say the names incorrectly. I'm so sorry. Please don't at me. But these are fictional names as far as I know. They're not based on any specific language, so hopefully I won't offend anyone. But anyways, think of the relationship between Lan and Hilo. Lan is the oldest child of the family. He has all these expectations put on his shoulder, and culturally, he lives up to those expectations. He has taken the role as the pillar. He is doing his duties. He is trying to maintain peace. He is trying to maintain the image of the clan, all these things that come with it. And so his motivation and his loyalty belongs to the clan because he identifies with his role as the oldest brother. Contrast that with Hilo's motivations. So just on their face, you would say that both brothers are equally loyal to the clan. However, consider the difference between what specifically they're loyal to. So Lan is loyal to the idea of the clan. He's loyal to his grandfather. He's loyal to his position and to tradition. But Hilo is loyal to his men. He is the horn of the clan. He has camaraderie and kinship with all his fists and fingers. That is where his loyalty lies. That's what he sees. That's what the clan is to him. It's not about the position or the prestige or all those other things. It's about his men and his position with his men. So even though on the outside, you see these 2 people and you think, okay, they're both loyal to their clan. What's the big deal? Just the underlying motivations and character differences between them is so compelling, and it's just such a good contrast between the 2 brothers. And it also plays really well into kind of the way they butt heads, about how they want to make decisions for the good of the clan. I just think it's a really good dynamic, and Fonda Lee did a great job with that. And then think of Shay. So she originally is kind of introduced into this story as the black sheep of the family. She had decided a couple years back that she didn't want to wear her jade anymore. She didn't want to be part of the clan business, and she was actually going to move away to a foreign country and live with her foreign husband. So she rejected the clan. She didn't want to be a part of it. She didn't really contact people that much. She was very much taking herself and putting herself outside of it as if she wanted nothing to do with the clan anymore. And yet, when it all came down to it, when her brother Lan, who she had a lot of loyalty and affection to just as a person rather than as the pillar specifically, when he asked her for a favor, that was for the clan's sake, of course she did it. When Lan is killed and Hilo calls upon her to rejoin the clan and be her weatherman, what does she do? Does she go, no, I cast the clan aside, I am done with it? No, she's drawn back in, even though she had tried to escape from the pull of the clan and of wearing jade and of being part of that culture. She was pulled back in for her family, for revenge. And then lastly, of course, you have Andon, who is sort of, I would say he's even more of an outsider than Shay, because she is the black sheep of the three siblings, but then he is technically a cousin. And because he comes from such a difficult family background, with his mother specifically having suffered from the itches and dying as a result of that, and then I think his father is foreign, he feels like an outsider, and he feels such an intense loyalty to the siblings because they took him in and because they took care of him. And so his loyalty to the clan is not about the clan, it's about his siblings. Well, technically his cousins, but in relationship terms, they're siblings, right? And so his motivation is tied to them, like what they're going through. And so, like I said, all four of these siblings, because they're so distinct and they have such different things going on in their individual lives and in their heads, it's just really compelling. Because if they were all the same and they all just kind of had this robotic, like, oh, I'm loyal to the clan because that's our culture and that's what's expected, it would be incredibly boring. And I just think it'd be hard to connect to those characters. But because Fonda Lee did such a great job making them all so distinct, and each of them, being able to draw in the reader in their own way, I just think it was really effective. And it helped, create this connection to these really, really morally great characters. Okay, next, without dwelling on that one too long, I want to talk about the culture in this fantasy world. So on the island of Kikon, it is completely expected and normal that these two clans, Mountain Clan and No Peak, to have control over like normal life and business and kind of the underground world, the crime world, all this stuff. That's normal for them. That's culturally acceptable. So even though, you come from your own perspective as a reader of going, well, crime is bad, drugs are bad, extortion is bad, like all these things, because it's framed in a way that shows that the people dealing with it on a day-to-day basis accept it and just see it as normal, you as a reader become okay with it because you're like, well, this is their culture, this is the norm for them, and they're all fine with it. So that's something I definitely think that any writer can pull into their story when they're trying to get their readers to connect with really like maybe brutal cultures, these morally gray characters existing in very difficult and demanding worlds, is just showing that that's kind of how it is. That's a fact of their life. They're not abnormal. They're not, swimming upstream. Like, it's just, this is how it is, So yes, this person is morally gray. They're doing bad things, but it's not because they're a bad person. It's because they're just trying to survive in the world that they have been born into. So just as a writer, casting it that way, I think helps the readers be a lot more willing to accept some of your characters' actions, as long as they're not in such extreme contrast to the world around them. I'm almost curious for that reason if Jade City is ever characterized as grimdark, because I know that's kind of a staple of grimdark, is that just the world is really intense and horrible and violent and terrible, and there's just so many awful things happening. And I do feel like that's kind of Jade City, just in more of an urban fantasy sense rather than the typical like medieval fantasy sense that we see in like Game of Thrones or Joe Abercrombie's work, which I have one of his books. Haven't read it yet. That's like later on my TBR, but I'm curious if Jade City has the label of grimdark or if that has to be like medieval. I'm not sure. Subgenres kind of confuse me sometimes. But let's talk about my final piece of writing advice, which is basically the juxtaposition of your morally gray characters against people that are worse. So once again, using Jade City, let me explain. The Mountain Clan and No Peak at the beginning of the story are kind of on equal footing. We think they're doing the same things, they're kind of messing with each other, but nothing's really that bad yet. But then, as you know, through kind of the unfolding events in the first part of the story, we find out that there's a lot more underhanded things happening on the side of the mountain. You know, they're going behind No Peak's back to control and manipulate the Jade trade. They're manufacturing the drug SN1 in, I think it was Yucatan. I forget how to pronounce the name of the country, but another country outside of Kikon. They're manufacturing the drug there. You know, so there's all these other things that the mountain is doing that No Peak is not doing. So even though initially we see, okay, yeah, there's these like two basically mafia families doing these bad things, because they were on equal footing, it wasn't a big deal. But then the author, Fonda Lee, shows us, hey, actually, the mountain is going outside of the norm. The mountain is breaking cultural norms, like we talked about in the second piece. The mountain is stepping outside of what people on Kikon are comfortable with, and thus they are worse. And so with that juxtaposition of, you know, the No Peak clan against the, you know, more morally corrupt mountain clan, you kind of have, once again, more reader sympathy for No Peak. And you can do that in your writing as well. You know, if you have your morally gray characters, you know, whatever group they're in, or maybe they're loners, whatever, as long as the enemy they're fighting is noticeably worse in some way, even if it's not a super extreme difference, as long as there is an observable difference and they're acting outside of the norms of the culture of this world, out of the rules of the game, as it were, then you can use that contrast to say, hey, yeah, my guys are bad, but they're not as bad as those guys, so you should root for them. So that's basically the idea of juxtaposition, if that makes sense. But oh man, did I love this book. It was such an incredible take on crime families, on martial arts and magic, on family dramas, and just Fonda Lee. I need the next book. I'm waiting for my birthday in June, and then I'm getting it. And I'm gonna read it so fast, I swear. But yeah, those are my 3 pieces of advice for writers trying to craft morally gray characters that connect with readers. Obviously, there's tons of other ways to do that. These are just 3 that I came up with, and you don't have to use these. You don't have to use all 3. You can, you know, do your own spin on any of these, but these are just some ideas I had to maybe help you if you're trying to figure out how to do this. If you have any other ideas for how to do this, please share that down in the comments for other people to read and enjoy, and for me to read and enjoy as well. What can I say? I always can use some more writing advice. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video and got something out of it. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch. I hope you have an amazing week, and as always, happy writing. Bye.